3 in the morning used to be my favorite time. The house quiet, Selah breathing softly beside me, the world reduced to just us and whatever book I was reading. Now 3 a.m. meant something different entirely. It meant checking my wife's Instagram and watching her boss Marcus Weller like every single photo she posted, even the ones from 4 years ago. I'm Finn Harlow, 42 years old, and I work in human resources for a mid-sized manufacturing company here in Millbrook, Maine. Not exactly the career I dreamed of in college, but it pays well enough and keeps me sharp. You learn things in HR, how to read people, how to spot patterns, how to document everything. Skills that turned out to be more useful than I ever imagined. The pattern started small. A like here, a comment there. Looking great, Selah, on her vacation photos. Congratulations, when she posted about her promotion. Normal boss behavior, I told myself. Marcus Weller ran the marketing department where Selah worked as a senior coordinator. Of course, he'd engage with her professional posts. But then I noticed the timestamps. Marcus wasn't just liking her recent posts. He was scrolling back through years of photos, liking pictures of Selah at college reunions, family barbecues, even random Tuesday morning coffee shots. The kind of deep dive scrolling you do when you're obsessed with someone. When you can't stop looking. Can't sleep again? Selah stirred beside me, her voice thick with drowsiness. Just checking email, I lied, closing Instagram and setting my phone on the nightstand. Go back to sleep. She rolled over without another word. 5 years ago, she would have asked what was bothering me. She would have made room for me to curl up behind her, would have talked until we both fell asleep. Now, she just rolled over. I stared at the ceiling and thought about Marcus Weller. 40-something, divorced, drove a BMW that cost more than most people's houses. He'd joined the company 8 months ago, brought in from some Boston firm to modernize their marketing approach. Selah had been excited about working with him, said he had innovative ideas, and really understood her vision. The next morning, I made coffee and watched Selah get ready for work. She spent 20 minutes on her makeup, trying on 3 different outfits before settling on a blue dress I'd never seen before. New dress? I asked. This old thing? I've had it forever. She smoothed the fabric over her hips, checking herself in the hallway mirror. We have that big presentation today. Marcus wants everyone looking professional. Marcus wants. Everything was about what Marcus wanted lately. After she left, I sat in my home office and did what I do best. I started building a file, screenshots of every interaction between Marcus and Selah on social media, timestamps showing when he liked her posts, comments that seemed just a little too personal for a boss-employee relationship. The evidence painted a clear picture. Marcus Weller wasn't just Selah's boss. He was a man obsessed with my wife. That evening, I decided to test my theory. How was the presentation? I asked when Selah came home, 2 hours later than usual. Oh, you know how it is. Marcus wanted to go over everything afterward, make sure we hit all the key points. She kicked off her heels and headed straight for the shower. I'm exhausted. Can we just order takeout? While she showered, I checked her Instagram. She'd posted a photo from the office, her and 3 co-workers standing around a conference table, smiling at the camera. Posted 20 minutes ago. Marcus had already liked it. But here's what really caught my attention. I scrolled through Marcus's recent activity, and he'd been liking photos all afternoon. Not just Selah's current posts, but old ones. A Halloween photo from 2019, a beach vacation from 2020, a random selfie from last spring. He was scrolling through her entire history while sitting in meetings, while eating lunch, probably while his own employees were trying to talk to him. This wasn't casual social media engagement. This was digital stalking. I needed more than screenshots. I needed concrete proof. The next day, while Selah was at work, I installed a family tracking app on the iPad she borrowed for her long commutes. Just a safety precaution, I told myself, in case something happened. The app was designed for families to keep track of each other, completely legal, completely reasonable. What I found wasn't reasonable at all. Selah's route to work took her directly downtown, a straight 15-minute drive. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the GPS showed a detour, a 40-minute stop at Riverside Towers, an upscale apartment complex on the other side of town. The same complex where, according to the company directory, Marcus Weller lived. The detours had been happening for 11 months. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the GPS data on my laptop screen, and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, more calculating. I'd spent my entire career dealing with workplace violations, documenting inappropriate behavior, building cases that would hold up under scrutiny. Now I was going to build a case against my own wife. That weekend, I suggested we go to Antonelli's, the Italian place where we'd had our first anniversary dinner. Selah seemed surprised, but agreed. She wore the blue dress again, the one she'd claimed to have forever, but had clearly bought recently. "This is nice," she said, twirling pasta around her fork. "We should do this more often." "We should," I agreed, then pulled out my phone. "Let me get a photo. You look beautiful." She smiled, a real smile, the kind I remembered from our early years together. For a moment, I almost felt guilty about what I was planning. Almost. I posted the photo to Instagram with a simple caption, "Date night with my beautiful wife." Then I waited. 4 minutes. That's how long it took Marcus Weller to comment on a photo of my wife and me having dinner together. "She's lucky to have you," he wrote. I stared at those words, feeling that cold calculation spread through my chest. He was commenting on our date night photo from his own date night. I could see he'd posted a photo of himself at some trendy downtown bar just an hour earlier. He was out for the evening, probably with friends or maybe alone, and he was still monitoring Selah's social media. I typed my response carefully. "She's lucky you have a wife who doesn't check your phone." The comment posted. I watched the 3 dots appear and disappear as Marcus started typing, then stopped, then started again. Finally, nothing. Within an hour, Marcus Weller had deleted his Instagram account entirely. But I'd been taking screenshots for weeks. I had everything. "What are you smiling about?" Selah asked, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "Just thinking about how much I love you," I said, and squeezed her fingers gently. That night, after Selah fell asleep, I opened my laptop and began organizing everything I'd collected. Screenshots, GPS data, timestamps, social media interactions going back months. I created a timeline, cross-referenced locations, built a comprehensive picture of an affair that had been happening right under my nose. By morning, I had enough evidence to destroy 2 marriages and probably end a couple of careers. The question was, what was I going to do with it? Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Maine weather that matched my mood perfectly. I sat in my office at Millbrook Manufacturing, staring at a manila envelope I'd prepared over the weekend. Inside, 43 pages of printed screenshots, GPS location data, and a timeline that would make any HR professional proud of its thoroughness. The envelope was addressed to Helena Trenwall, attorney at law, Marcus Weller's wife. I'd done my research on Helena over the weekend. Harvard Law, specializing in corporate litigation, partner at one of Portland's most prestigious firms. The kind of woman who didn't tolerate being made a fool of. The kind who would want evidence, not accusations. "Morning, Finn." Janet from accounting poked her head into my office. "Coffee's fresh if you want some." "Thanks, Janet. I'll grab some in a minute." She lingered in the doorway. "Everything okay? You seem, I don't know, distracted lately." I managed what I hoped was a reassuring smile. "Just busy. You know how it is." After she left, I sealed the envelope and called a courier service. Same-day delivery. Signature required. I wanted Helena to have to sign for it personally, wanted her to know someone had taken the time and effort to document what her husband was doing. The courier picked up the envelope at 10:30. By noon, according to the tracking app, it had been delivered to Helena's office. I spent the rest of the day trying to focus on actual work, reviewing vacation requests, updating policy manuals, preparing for a harassment training session scheduled for next week. The irony wasn't lost on me. Selah texted around 3. Working late again tonight. Marcus wants to review the quarterly projections. Of course he did. I texted back, no problem, I'll grab dinner with Nate. Nate Morrison had been my best friend since high school. He ran a small construction business and had the kind of practical wisdom that comes from years of dealing with difficult people and complicated problems. If anyone would understand what I was going through, it would be Nate. We met at Murphy's Tavern, a local place that served decent burgers and minded its own business. Nate was already there when I arrived, nursing a beer and scrolling through his phone. "You look terrible," he said by way of greeting. "Thanks. You always know just what to say." "I'm serious, man. When's the last time you slept?" I slumped into the booth across from him. Define sleep. The waitress came over, Kelly, who'd been working at Murphy's since we were in our 20s. "The usual, Finn?" "Yeah, thanks." After she left, Nate leaned forward. "Okay, what's going on? And don't tell me it's work stress. I've seen you handle budget crises and layoffs without breaking a sweat." I'd been debating how much to tell him. Nate was loyal to a fault, but he was also the kind of guy who believed in handling problems directly. I needed someone who would help me think through the implications of what I'd set in motion. "Selah's having an affair," I said quietly. Nate's expression didn't change. He just nodded slowly and took another sip of his beer. "How long have you known?" "Officially? About a week. Suspected it for longer." "With who?" "Her boss, Marcus Weller." "The guy with the fancy car? Figures." Nate shook his head. "What are you going to do about it?" Kelly brought my burger and fries. I waited until she was out of earshot before answering. "I already did something about it." I told him about the evidence I'd gathered, about the envelope I'd sent to Helena Trenwall. Nate listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious as I talked. "So you're going nuclear," he said when I finished. "I'm going truthful. There's a difference." "Is there? Because once this gets out, there's no putting it back. You know that, right?" I picked at my fries, suddenly not very hungry. What was I supposed to do? Confront Selah directly? Give her a chance to spin some story about how it's all innocent, how I'm being paranoid and controlling? Maybe. "Come on, Nate. You've seen the evidence. GPS data doesn't lie. Timestamps don't lie." "No, but people do. And sometimes they lie to themselves most of all." He finished his beer and signaled Kelly for another. "I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying once you start down this road, you can't go back. Are you ready for that?" My phone buzzed with a text from Selah. "Don't wait up. This is taking longer than expected." I showed Nate the message. "She's with him right now. Probably has been for hours." "Then why aren't you angrier? You're sitting here calm as anything, talking about evidence and documentation like this is just another HR case." That stopped me. He was right. I wasn't angry. I was hurt, disappointed, maybe even relieved to finally know for certain, but not angry. "I think I used up all my anger over the past few months," I said. Watching her lie to my face every day, pretending everything was normal, the anger burned itself out. "So what's left?" I thought about that while I finished my burger. What was left? What was driving me to systematically document and expose my wife's affair instead of just confronting her directly? "Justice," I said finally. "I want the truth to come out. I want consequences that match actions." Nate nodded slowly. "Okay, but understand something. Once Helena gets that envelope, this becomes bigger than just you and Selah. Marcus has a family too. Kids, probably. A career. You're about to blow up a lot of lives." He should have thought about that before he decided to sleep with my wife. We sat in silence for a while, watching the dinner crowd filter in. Murphy's was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where gossip traveled faster than wildfire. By tomorrow, half the town would probably know about Selah and Marcus. "You need anything?" Nate asked as we prepared to leave. "Place to stay, someone to help you move stuff, whatever?" "Not yet, but thanks. This offer stands, okay? Whatever you need." I drove home through the quiet streets of Millbrook, past the coffee shop where Selah and I used to meet for Saturday morning breakfast, past the park where we'd walked our old dog Max before he passed last year. Everything looked the same, but it all felt different now, like I was seeing my own life from the outside. The house was dark when I got home. Selah's car wasn't in the driveway. I sat in my kitchen and opened my laptop, checking the GPS tracker one more time. The iPad was at Riverside Towers, had been there for 3 hours. I imagined Selah and Marcus in his apartment, maybe having dinner, maybe talking about their future together, maybe talking about me. Did they laugh about how clueless I was? Did Marcus brag about how easy it had been to seduce my wife? Did Selah complain about our marriage, rewrite our history to justify what she was doing? My phone rang, startling me out of my thoughts. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Harlow? This is Helena Trenwall." My heart started beating faster. "Mrs. Trenwall, I received your package today." Her voice was controlled, professional, but I could hear something underneath it. Fury, maybe, or just exhaustion. "I think we should meet." "Of course, whatever works for you." "Tomorrow, my office, 2 o'clock. I'll be there. Mr. Harlow, thank you for the courtesy of letting me know." The line went quiet. I sat in my dark kitchen, listening to the house settle around me, and realized there was no going back now. Whatever happened next, I'd set it in motion the moment I'd sealed that envelope. Selah came home just after midnight, slipping into bed quietly, probably thinking I was asleep. She smelled like unfamiliar cologne and wine. I lay still, listening to her breathe, and wondered if this would be one of the last nights we'd spend in the same bed. Tomorrow, Helena Trenwall would decide what to do with the information I'd given her. Tomorrow, the consequences would begin. Helena Trenwall's office occupied the top floor of a sleek glass building in Portland's Arts District, the kind of place that screamed success and competence, where every detail had been carefully chosen to project authority. I sat in the waiting area, surrounded by leather furniture and abstract art, trying not to think about how much this meeting was going to cost someone. "Mr. Harlow?" A young man in an expensive suit appeared at my elbow. "Mrs. Trenwall will see you now." Helena's office was exactly what I'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Casco Bay, mahogany desk, law books arranged with military precision. She stood when I entered, extending a firm handshake. "Thank you for coming." She gestured to a chair across from her desk. "Please, sit." Helena Trenwall was probably in her early 40s, with steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, and the kind of intense focus that made you feel like she could see right through you. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. The manila envelope sat open on her desk, its contents spread out in neat piles. "I've reviewed your documentation," she said, settling back into her chair. "It's very thorough. I work in human resources. Documentation is part of the job." "Yes, I can see that." She picked up one of the screenshots, studied it for a moment. These social media interactions go back quite a while. 11 months, based on what I could find. The GPS data suggests the physical relationship started around the same time. She nodded, making notes on a legal pad. "You understand I'll need to verify this information independently." "Of course." "And you understand that by providing this evidence, you're essentially ending your own marriage as well." I'd been expecting that question. "My marriage ended the first time my wife decided to lie to me about where she was spending her evenings. I'm just making it official." Helena studied me for a long moment. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Anger. Demands for revenge. Most people in your situation want to burn everything down. I'm not most people. No, I can see that. She closed the folder and leaned back in her chair. Mr. Harlow, I'm going to file for divorce. Today. I'm also going to recommend that Marcus's employer conduct a thorough review of his professional conduct. He works for a different company than I do. I know, but workplace affairs often involve other policy violations, misuse of company resources, inappropriate relationships with subordinates, potential harassment issues. She made another note. Companies don't like liability. I hadn't considered that angle. Marcus's affair with Selah might just be the tip of the iceberg. There's something else, Helena continued. Something you should know before this goes any further. She opened another folder, pulled out what looked like a background check report. Marcus has a sealed juvenile record. Assault charges when he was 17. The charges were dropped, but there's a pattern of inappropriate behavior with women that goes back decades. My stomach dropped. Are you saying Selah might be in danger? I'm saying your wife might not be Marcus's first affair, and she probably won't be his last. Men like Marcus don't change. They just get better at hiding their behavior. I thought about Selah, about the way she'd been acting lately. More confident, more secretive, but also more anxious. I'd attributed it to guilt about the affair, but what if there was more to it? What do you need from me? I asked. Nothing. You've given me everything I need to protect my own interests. What you do about your marriage is up to you. She stood, indicating the meeting was over. I gathered my jacket and headed for the door. Mr. Harlow? I turned back. For what it's worth, I think you handled this with more class than most people would have managed. I drove back to Millbrook feeling like I'd just lit a very long fuse. Helena Trenwall wasn't the kind of woman who did anything halfway. By the end of the week, Marcus Weller's life was going to be very different. My phone buzzed with a text from Selah. Dinner with the girls tonight, don't wait up. The girls. Right. Instead of going home, I stopped at Murphy's Tavern. It was early for the dinner crowd, but I needed a drink and some time to think. I ordered a whiskey and found a quiet booth in the back. Finn Harlow, as I live and breathe. I looked up to see Barb Zimmer sliding into the booth across from me. Barb was our next-door neighbor, a retired teacher who knew everyone's business and wasn't shy about sharing it. She was also the unofficial mayor of our neighborhood gossip network. Hi, Barb. How are you? Oh, you know, keeping busy. She signaled the waitress for a wine. Haven't seen much of you and Selah lately. Everything okay? Here it was, the moment when I had to decide how much of the truth I was ready to share. In a town like Millbrook, Barb Zimmer was both the best and worst person to confide in. She'd spread whatever I told her to half the town by morning, but she'd also be fiercely loyal if she thought I was being wronged. We're going through a rough patch, I said carefully. Marriage is hard work, Barb agreed, accepting her wine from Kelly. Takes two people willing to put in the effort. That's the problem. I'm not sure we both are. Barb's expression sharpened. She'd caught the implication immediately. Oh, honey, I'm sorry to hear that. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Barb had been married to the same man for 43 years before he passed away 2 winters ago. She understood the weight of what I was dealing with. You know, she said eventually, I was at the grocery store last week, and I saw Selah with that new fellow from her work, Marcus something. Marcus Weller. That's the one. Nice-looking man, drives that fancy car. She paused. They seemed friendly. How friendly? Friendly enough that I wondered if I should mention it to you. But then I thought maybe it was just work stuff. Maybe I was reading too much into it. What did you see, Barb? She took a sip of her wine, choosing her words carefully. They were in the coffee aisle, and she was laughing at something he said. Really laughing, you know? The way she used to laugh with you when you were first married. and when they walked to the checkout, he put his hand on her back, just for a second, but it wasn't a work gesture. No, it wasn't. My phone buzzed with another text from Selah. Running late. Girls want to try that new place downtown. I showed Barb the message. She read it and shook her head. Honey, I don't know what's going on between you two, but lying isn't the way to fix it. No, it's not. Barb reached across the table and patted my hand. Whatever you decide to do, you know you've got friends here. This town takes care of its own. I finished my whiskey and headed home, thinking about what Barb had said. This town takes care of its own. In a place like Millbrook, reputation mattered. People remembered who could be trusted and who couldn't. Once word got out about Selah and Marcus, the social consequences would be swift and lasting. The house was empty when I got home, just as I'd expected. I sat in my kitchen and opened my laptop, checking the GPS tracker out of habit. The iPad was downtown, at a restaurant called Meridian. I looked up the restaurant online. Upscale, romantic, definitely not the kind of place Selah would go with the girls. On impulse, I called the restaurant. Meridian, this is Jessica. Hi, I'm supposed to meet my wife there for dinner, but I'm running late. Could you check if the Harlow party has been seated yet? Let me check. I don't see a Harlow reservation tonight. Maybe it's under Weller? Oh yes, party of 2. They were seated about an hour ago. Perfect, thanks. I hung up and stared at my phone. Party of 2. Not a girls' night out, a romantic dinner with her boss while she lied to me about where she was. I poured myself another whiskey and sat in my living room, surrounded by 5 years of marriage. Wedding photos on the mantel, vacation souvenirs on the bookshelf, the couch we'd picked out together when we first bought the house. All of it felt like artifacts from someone else's life now. My phone rang. Helena Trenwall. Mr. Harlow, I wanted to update you. I've filed the divorce papers. Marcus will be served tomorrow morning. That was fast. I don't believe in wasting time. I've also contacted his employer. They'll be conducting their own investigation into his conduct. What kind of investigation? The kind that usually results in termination. Companies don't like liability, especially when it involves management-level employees and potential harassment issues. After she hung up, I sat in the quiet house and realized that tomorrow everything would change. Marcus would be served with divorce papers, probably fired from his job, and forced to confront the consequences of his choices. Selah would learn that her affair was no longer a secret, and I would have to decide what came next. The call came at 7:30 the next morning, while I was making coffee and trying to pretend this was just another normal day. Finn? Selah's voice was shaky, panicked. Something's happened. Marcus, there's been some kind of mistake. I kept my voice steady. What kind of mistake? His wife filed for divorce. She's saying he's been having an affair with me. Are you at work? No, I'm at Marcus's office. The police just served him with papers, and now there are people from corporate here asking questions. Corporate. Helena had moved fast. Where are you? I asked. I told you I'm at... Selah, where are you calling from? A pause. Marcus's apartment. At least she'd stopped lying, even if it was too late to matter. I'm coming home, she said. We need to talk. Yes, we do. I finished my coffee and called in sick to work. This conversation was going to require my full attention. Selah arrived 20 minutes later, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Her makeup was smudged, her hair disheveled. She looked like someone whose world had just collapsed. How did she know? She asked, before she was even through the front door. Know what? Don't play games with me, Finn. Helena Trenwall somehow got hold of detailed information about Marcus and me. Screenshots, locations, dates. Someone gave her that information. I sat down at the kitchen table and gestured for her to join me. Yes, someone did. She stared at me for a long moment, understanding dawning on her face. You. Me? How long have you known? Officially? About 2 weeks. I've suspected for months. She slumped into the chair across from me, looking smaller than I'd seen her in years. The Instagram thing. When Marcus deleted his account, that was you. That was me. And you've been tracking me somehow. The iPad you borrow for work has GPS. I installed a family safety app. She put her head in her hands. Oh, God. You know everything. I know you've been spending Tuesday and Thursday evenings at Marcus's apartment for the past 11 months. I know you've been lying to me about working late, about girls' nights, about business dinners. I know Marcus has been obsessively monitoring your social media presence like some kind of digital stalker. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, Selah. You're having an affair with your married boss, and you've been lying to me about it for almost a year. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean for this to happen. But it did happen, and you kept choosing to let it happen every Tuesday and Thursday for 11 months. Are you going to divorce me? The question hung in the air between us. 2 weeks ago, I might have said yes immediately. But sitting across from my wife, seeing her finally stripped of all pretense and lies, I realized the answer was more complicated than I'd expected. I don't know, I said honestly. But I know I can't live with someone who lies to me every day. I can end it. With Marcus. It's probably over anyway, after what happened this morning. What exactly happened this morning? She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Helena's lawyers served him with divorce papers at his office, in front of his entire staff. Then corporate security showed up with some kind of investigator. They're reviewing all his employee interactions, looking for patterns of inappropriate behavior. And they found some. Apparently, I'm not the first employee he's been involved with. I thought about what Helena had told me about Marcus's sealed juvenile record, his pattern of inappropriate behavior with women. They fired him, Selah continued, effective immediately, escorted him out of the building with security. What about you? I'm on administrative leave pending their investigation. They want to make sure I wasn't coerced or harassed. Were you? She looked at me sharply. What's that supposed to mean? It means Marcus has a history of inappropriate relationships with women. It means maybe you weren't as in control of this situation as you thought you were. I made my own choices, Finn. I'm not some victim. No, you're not, but you might not have been the only person making choices here. We sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, I could hear Barb Zimmer working in her garden, probably wondering about the unfamiliar car in our driveway at 8 a.m. What happens now? Selah asked finally. Now you decide what you want. Do you want to try to save our marriage, or do you want to be free to pursue whatever future you think you have with Marcus? There is no future with Marcus. Even if he wasn't married, even if he didn't just lose his job. I never wanted to leave you, Finn. I just wanted to feel alive again. And I made you feel invisible? Not invisible, just overlooked. Like we were sharing a space instead of being husband and wife. I thought about that, about the past year, the way we drifted into routine and complacency, the way I'd stopped really seeing her, stopped making an effort to connect. That doesn't justify what you did, I said. No, it doesn't, but it explains it. My phone buzzed with a text from Nate. Everything okay? Heard there was some drama at Weller Industries this morning? News traveled fast in a town like Millbrook. People are going to talk, I said, showing Selah the message. I know. God, I know. She put her head back in her hands. I have to face everyone at work, assuming I still have a job. I have to face our friends, our neighbors. Everyone's going to know what I did. Yes, they are. Are you happy about that? I considered the question. Was I happy that Selah was going to face social consequences for her choices? Was I satisfied that Marcus had lost his job and his marriage? I'm not happy, I said finally. But I'm not sorry either. Actions have consequences. You and Marcus made choices that affected other people. Now you get to live with the results. Very philosophical. Very practical. I work in HR, remember? I've seen what happens when people think they can act without consequences. She stood up, smoothing down her wrinkled dress. I should go shower, change clothes, try to figure out what comes next. Selah? She turned back. I meant what I said. I can't live with someone who lies to me. If we're going to try to work this out, the lying stops now. Completely. And if we can't work it out? Then we end this with as much dignity as we can manage. After she went upstairs, I called Nate back. How bad is it out there? I asked. Bad. Marcus getting escorted out of his office by security was pretty public, and apparently Helena Trenwall's divorce filing mentions adultery specifically. People are putting two and two together. And coming up with Selah. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Don't be. She made her choices. What about you? What are you going to do? I looked around my kitchen, at the life Selah and I had built together. 5 years of marriage, but longer than that of friendship and love and shared dreams. All of it complicated now by 11 months of lies and betrayal. I'm going to try to figure out if there's anything left worth saving. And if there isn't, then I'm going to start over. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet house and listened to the shower running upstairs. In a few hours, Selah would have to face the world knowing that everyone knew what she'd done. Marcus was already facing the consequences of his choices, divorced, fired, publicly humiliated. I'd gotten the justice I wanted. The truth was out, and the people responsible were paying the price for their actions. So why didn't I feel better about it? The next few days passed in a strange kind of suspended animation. Selah stayed home, claiming she was sick, while corporate completed their investigation. I went to work and tried to act normal while fielding concerned looks from colleagues who'd heard the rumors. Everything all right at home? Janet from accounting asked on Thursday morning, lingering by my office door with obvious concern. We're working through some things, I said, which was technically true. Well, if you need anything. Thanks, Janet, I appreciate it. What I appreciated was that people were being discreet. In a small town, that was a gift. Thursday evening, Selah got the call she'd been dreading. They want me to come in tomorrow for a final meeting, she said, hanging up the phone, to discuss my employment status. What do you think they'll decide? I think they'll fire me, quietly, with a decent severance package, but still fired. She was probably right. Companies didn't like the liability that came with workplace affairs, especially when one party was in a supervisory position. Even though Marcus was gone, Selah's continued employment would be a constant reminder of the situation. What will you do? I don't know. Look for another job, I guess. Though that's going to be difficult with this following me around. Millbrook wasn't a big place. Word would get around, and Selah's professional reputation was probably damaged beyond repair, at least locally. You could look in Portland, I suggested, or Boston. Fresh start. She looked at me sharply. Is that what you want? For me to leave? I want you to have options. That's not what I asked. I thought about it. Did I want Selah to leave? Part of me did. The part that was tired of the awkwardness, the careful conversations, the weight of betrayal hanging over every interaction. But another part of me still remembered the woman I'd fallen in love with, still hoped we might find our way back to something resembling trust. I want you to do whatever gives you the best chance at being happy, I said finally. What if what makes me happy is staying here and trying to fix what I broke? Then you stay, and we figure it out together. And if I can't fix it? Then at least you'll know you tried. Friday morning, Selah dressed carefully for her meeting, professional but not too formal, contrite but not defeated. I watched her apply makeup with shaking hands and felt an unexpected surge of sympathy. It'll be okay, I said. Will it? Eventually. After she left, I tried to focus on work, but found myself checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for news. The call came just after lunch. They fired me, she said without preamble. I'm sorry. 3 months severance and a neutral reference. Could have been worse, I guess. What happens now? Now I come home and we figure out what comes next. But when Selah got home, she wasn't alone. Marcus Weller was with her. I was in the kitchen when I heard 2 car doors slam in the driveway. Through the window, I watched Marcus follow Selah toward the front door, his face grim and determined. They came in without knocking, Marcus trailing behind Selah like he belonged there. "We need to talk," Selah announced. "All of us," Marcus added, meeting my eyes for the first time since this whole thing started. I looked at Marcus Weller, really looked at him. He was younger than I'd expected, probably late 30s, with the kind of polished appearance that came from expensive clothes and regular gym visits. But there were dark circles under his eyes, and his usual confidence seemed shaken. "Okay," I said. "Let's talk." We sat in my living room, Selah and Marcus on the couch, me in the armchair across from them. It felt like the world's most uncomfortable business meeting. "First," Marcus said, "I want to apologize. What happened between Selah and me was wrong, and I take full responsibility for initiating it." "Do you?" "Yes, I pursued her, despite knowing she was married. I used my position as her supervisor to create opportunities for us to spend time together. I manipulated the situation." I looked at Selah. "Is that how you remember it?" She shifted uncomfortably. "It's more complicated than that." "How so?" "Marcus didn't force me into anything. I made choices too." "But he's right about the power dynamic," I said. "He was your boss. He had leverage you didn't." Marcus nodded. "That's why I wanted to come here, to apologize in person and to make sure you understand that Selah isn't the villain here. I never said she was. But you destroyed both our lives to get back at us." The accusation hung in the air. I could feel Selah watching me, waiting to see how I'd respond. "I documented facts and shared them with the people who had a right to know," I said calmly. "Your wife deserved to know what you were doing. My wife's employer deserved to know about the inappropriate relationship between a supervisor and subordinate. I didn't destroy anything. I just made sure the truth came to light." "And you don't feel any responsibility for the consequences?" "Do you feel any responsibility for the choices that led to those consequences?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "Of course I do. But there were other ways to handle this. We could have talked, worked something out privately." "Like what? You'd quietly end the affair and go back to your wife, and Selah would come back to me, and we'd all pretend nothing happened?" "Maybe. That's not how trust works, Marcus, and it's not how accountability works." Selah spoke up. "What Finn did was legal, but it was also cruel. He could have confronted us directly instead of going behind our backs." "Like you went behind my back for 11 months? That's different." "How?" "Because we were trying to figure out what we wanted without hurting anyone unnecessarily." I stared at her. "You were lying to me every day for almost a year. How is that not hurting me?" "Because you didn't know." "But I did know. Maybe not the details, but I knew something was wrong. I knew you were pulling away from me, lying about where you were, acting like a stranger in our own house." Marcus leaned forward. "Look, what's done is done. Helena's divorcing me, we've both lost our jobs, and everyone in town knows our business. The question is, what happens now?" "What do you want to happen now?" "I want to be with Selah, and I think she wants to be with me." I looked at my wife. "Is that true?" She met my eyes for the first time since they'd arrived. "I don't know. I thought I did, but everything's so complicated now." "It's not that complicated," I said. "You have to choose, him or me, but you can't have both, and you can't keep stringing everyone along while you figure out what you want." "That's not fair." "Fair would have been you making this choice 11 months ago before you started lying to me and sneaking around with your boss." Marcus stood up. "This isn't productive. Selah, are you coming with me or not?" The moment stretched out, all of us frozen in tableau. Selah looked back and forth between Marcus and me, her face a mask of confusion and pain. "I need time," she said finally. "How much time?" Marcus asked. "I don't know." "Selah, I just lost my marriage and my career for you. I need to know if that was worth it." "Don't put that on me," she snapped. "You lost your marriage and your career because of the choices you made, not because of me. We made those choices together. Did we? Or did you make them and I just went along?" I watched this exchange with growing clarity. Selah was right. Marcus had pursued her, used his position to create opportunities, manipulated the situation. But she was also wrong if she thought that absolved her of responsibility for her own choices. "I think you should leave," I said to Marcus. "This isn't your decision." "It's my house." Marcus looked at Selah one more time. "Call me when you figure out what you want." After he left, Selah and I sat in silence for several minutes. "Do you love him?" I asked finally. I thought I did. But watching him just now, seeing how he handled this, I don't know anymore. "Do you love me?" "Yes, but I don't know if that's enough." "It's a start." She looked around our living room, at the life we'd built together. "Can we really come back from this?" "I don't know. But if we're going to try, it has to be a real try. No more lies, no more contact with Marcus, no more excuses." "And if I can't do that?" "Then we end this cleanly and try to stay friends." She nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try." It wasn't a declaration of love or a promise of happily ever after, but it was honest, which was more than we'd had in a long time.